In February 1966, District 6 was declared a whites-only area under the Group Areas Act of 1950. It is estimated that approximately 60,000 to 80,000 people were forcibly removed from District 6. Now, District 6 Rising from the Dust is a documentary and a personal account that looks at the gross human rights violations of those forced removals. Our producer, Linky Bierman, spoke to the filmmaker.
The memory of District 6 is as iconic to Cape Town as Table Mountain. My family once owned a considerable amount of property in this place.
Filmmaker V.M. Williams grew up listening to stories about District 6, about the vibrancy and fond memories retold by grandparents and mother. But they very rarely spoke about the forced removals. When V.M. and her family moved into the District 6 neighborhood in 2013, in a house restituted to her family, it awoken scars which she never knew existed, and she decided to make a film about the experience.
I think it's a difficult story to tell because District 6 is such a huge part of the legacy and history of Cape Town. It's part of the collective consciousness of our city. It's a huge chunk in the narrative of the city. And everybody knows about the forced removals, and everybody knows about this once vibrant place, this multicultural neighborhood. And I needed to figure out how I wanted to tell this story. And I felt that the only way I could do this story justice was to tell a personal story, and to tell the personal story of my family.
After returning to the area, she, for the first time, truly understood the impact of forced removals and the legacy of what was disrupted. It awakened a deeper understanding of what her family had lost and the direct impact of apartheid segregatory laws.
One of the issues around District 6 and the way it's narrated, or the way I've understood it as a child or as a young person growing up, was I understood the vibrancy, the beauty. I've seen the Tully Peterson and Kramer plays. It's part of the landscape of how we remember District 6 and how it's portrayed. But when I moved here, it opened up a can of worms, and I would say emotional scars. I call them intergenerational scars, because I only tapped into that part of the pain when I moved here. I understood the forced removals. It was like a physical, spiritual transition for me, moving into this space and understanding. And I think actually really getting my mother to sit down and speak to me about being forcibly removed for the first time was actually a turning point for me and for her.
The reality of living in District 6 today has motivated the couple to document their journey over the last 5 years.
I feel really conflicted living in District 6 at the moment. I feel conflicted because I made this film, and the film is really about looking at the issue of the land and why restitution hasn't taken place as speedily as it should be. But also, I live here and we have no amenities around us. We are surrounded by open fields with vagrants. The neighborhood is surrounded by, or not surrounded, but there are elements of gangsterism, drug dealing, prostitution, all of these things happening on the outskirts of where we live. And it's a really intimidating space to be in. It's a difficult space to be raising children. And I feel like District 6 is just being left to fester, to continue to fester like a sore. I think we need to remember the pain, and I think all of those people who have been forcibly removed need to remember the pain, because it's part of the healing, you know. And when we understand the pain and the trauma of forced removals, then the land becomes the priority, and restitution becomes a priority. And one of the elements of the film is looking at District 6 as a microcosm, and how this community existed in harmony, you know, where there were white, black, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, all living together in the same place harmoniously before apartheid intervened, before divide and rule intervened. And for me as a young person who grew up under apartheid, to know that this existed, to know that this possibility existed where people live together harmoniously, it sounds like an ideal. And I don't think we have achieved that in our democracy, that we are still very spatially segregated.
This film is an important reminder of how the past impacts on the present. It's the unfinished and continuously evolving story of District 6. Linky Bierman, SABC News, Cape Town.